Now from the foyer of the House of Commons are three MPs from the different parties. Stephen McKinnon is the MP for Gatineau and the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Works. Michael Cooper is a Conservative MP for the Alberta riding of St. Albert, Edmonton. And Rachel Blaney is the NDP member for the BC riding of North Island, Powell River. All three of you, welcome. Thanks for taking the time before you head off into your ridings for this week.
Thank you, Martin.
I want to start, Stephen McKinnon. We saw today there's a lot of developments, and I know as all of you go into your ridings, probably what most people will be talking about is NAFTA and the United States, because we saw the official confirmation on Thursday. The United States, the Trump administration, has given its 90-day notice to Congress that it's going to start renegotiating NAFTA. We also saw on Thursday, Stephen McKinnon, we saw Chrystia Freeland, the Foreign Affairs Minister, saying that the government is ready to, quote, review its purchase of F-18 Super Hornet jets if Boeing goes ahead with its threatened trade action against Bombardier over their C-Series jets. So, Stephen McKinnon, we have even rumors of a trade war in the aeronautics industry. What are Canadians to make of how things are evolving?
Well, we of course have been expecting the U.S. government to move as they have to serve notice of negotiations. We've been preparing for many months. Canada has an outstanding team of trade negotiators, and of course they are very ably led by Minister Champagne and Minister Freeland. And you know, the NAFTA agreement is 25 years old. It has served Canada very well, but it's also served Mexico and the U.S., our partners, very well. 9 million jobs in the United States are dependent on trade with Canada. I think almost 40 of the 50 U.S. states have Canada as their largest trading partner. So certainly we have supply chains and a great integration of these two great economies that have created jobs and created middle-class prosperity on both sides of the border. We'll be looking to achieve further gains in that, but you can be sure that Canada will come to the table prepared and with a comprehensive series of negotiating points of its own.
But I mean, should Canadians sort of, you know, do their seatbelt up and get ready for an escalating series of threats and counter-threats? I mean, as I said Thursday, we already saw in the aerospace sector, Boeing saying one thing about Canadian products, us saying something about maybe not buying fighter jets. Are we going to see this in the next 3 months ramping up? Is it something we're going to have to just get used to?
Well, candidly, yes, we are. The fact that it's a negotiation, the fact that 3 democratically elected governments are involved, the fact that there are all sorts of interests at play, and certainly those interests, those special interests in the United States tend to be very loud about how they would like to insert their particular demands onto the public agenda. So yes, if you remember the last free trade negotiations and how they played out, they were extremely cacophonous. But in our case, Canada has just come off a very successful negotiation with a lot of member states in Europe. It has come off comprehensive negotiations on the Trans-Pacific Partnership. We have probably the world's most battle-tested and comprehensively trained trade negotiators, and I think Canada looks forward to putting its position on the table in these NAFTA negotiations. But at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is create more middle-class jobs. We're trying to create more prosperity from one end of this country to the other, and you can be sure Canada's interests will be well defended.
Okay, Michael Cooper, when you go back to Edmonton, St. Albert, Edmonton, what do you say as an MP? What do you say to your constituents who are probably scratching their heads and wondering what this means?
Well, first of all, it appears that Justin Trudeau got exactly what Justin Trudeau asked for, because immediately following the U.S. election, instead of standing up for Canada's interests, the Prime Minister offered to renegotiate NAFTA, offered to renegotiate an agreement that has resulted in hundreds of thousands of jobs right across Canada. Now, obviously, in terms of the U.S. administration's notice to Congress to commence the 90-day period, it's concerning. It's concerning because we're talking about $2 billion worth of trade each and every day between Canada and the United States that is now on the line. So the stakes are high, and Canadians expect this government to come up with a plan to protect the benefits of NAFTA and to protect Canadian jobs. And if there's one thing I do agree with Steve on, it is that we do have great trade negotiators with whom I have every confidence in. But I have to say at the same time, I don't have much confidence and much faith in this government, because this is the same government that had a year to come up with a renegotiated new agreement on softwood lumber, and they dropped the ball on that. And up until now, they've dropped the ball on NAFTA.
Okay, Rachel Blaney, your position on this. I mean, some people have argued that faced with, I don't know, clear and present danger, if you want to call it that, faced with what we're going to be going through over the next months and maybe years in renegotiating NAFTA, we really do have to show I don't know, a common front, solidarity, everyone sort of put their shoulder to the wheel. Faced with that, what do you tell your constituents when they look at these developments on the NAFTA front?
Well, you know, I think that absolutely when all members of Parliament cross the border, we are doing a good job of that. I think there's been a strong message that we're working positively together and really working hard at developing and maintaining those important relationships. But the reality right now is thousands, hundreds of thousands of jobs are hanging in the balance. We don't know what's going to happen. And one of the things that this government has really failed to do was identify what the priorities are. We're hearing things about we're going to do the best, we're going to get a good deal. But what are the priorities and where are they focusing? Because Canadians need to know that. Right now there's a lot of uncertainty in a lot of different sectors. We're waiting to hear what's going to happen. It's been a very frustrating process. We, now are dealing with a U.S. president that, 1 minute is talking about tweaking the agreement, and now we're where we're at, where he's talked to Congress and 90 days is up, and we know something's going to happen. We've seen the softwood lumber tariffs happen. We've seen an attack on our dairy sector. So when we're seeing that kind of messaging, I really think the Liberal government needs to stand up for Canadians. They need to hear loud and clear what the priorities are, and they're going to need to show Canadians that they're willing to fight. I understand that they can't play their total hand and show people, but we do need to know what those priorities are, because Canadians need to know that this government is standing up for all Canadians and making sure that those jobs are kept. This is about maintaining sectors in this country and making sure that this relationship is one that is good and strong.
Okay, Stephen McKinnon, we heard from Chrystia Freeland yesterday at a scrum, and she was asked what are the priority areas, or what are the areas you'd like to see changed, and she mentioned the labor and the environment, but obviously Congress is going to be adding on all sorts of areas they want to see renegotiated before it gets back to the president in these next 90 days. Can you give Canadians, and are you in a position to give to Canadians, and if not when, ideas of where the areas are that Canada is prioritizing?
Well, I know Canadians will understand that they don't wish for us to weaken our negotiating hand by revealing our game plan at the outset to the Americans. We won't be doing that. We will not be doing what the NDP just suggested we do, and it's no surprise why the NDP haven't ever supported a trade deal if this is the way that they seek to negotiate trade agreements, by revealing our end game and our strategy.
No, by protecting Canadian jobs. Let's be really clear here. This is about setting priorities.
How do you think
we're not asking for the whole hand to be played. We're asking you to tell Canadians what you're going to be fighting for. Canadians deserve to know.
Okay,
I don't know how the NDP thinks we can protect Canadian jobs all at the same time exposing our game plan and exposing many of our vulnerabilities. The fact is that there are opportunities for Canada. 25 years ago, the internet barely existed. 25 years ago, many of these innovative Canadian industries did not exist. We have renewable technologies. We have many sectors of the economy that we can seek to improve access on, and we have many things that we can do to also protect Canadian consumers, protect Canadian industries, and create some of those manufacturing opportunities that I know we've been looking for a long time. So
here's a question,
at the end of the day, though, end of the day, Canada should be very confident about the opportunities that exist for us in a NAFTA renegotiation, and I know that we look forward to entering these negotiations with a very, very strong hand.
Just briefly in a word, though, I mean, in 90 days, Congress is going to come back to the president. They're going to have their shopping list. They will combine it with the president's shopping list. It will contain things like dairy and softwood lumber and intellectual properties, et cetera, et cetera. At that point, will the Canadian government be able to say, yeah, there are certain things we will not negotiate on, or there are certain things we won't budge on, or anything?
Well, again, we're not going to have this negotiation in public public and tell the Americans and the Mexicans, for that matter, what we intend to negotiate on. We see opportunity. We see opportunity to create economic opportunity and middle-class jobs here in Canada, and that's what we're going to be pursuing.
I want to give Michael Cooper a chance to weigh in there. What's your concern in terms of what you'd like to see over the coming weeks and months?
Well, look, Canadians expect this government to have a plan, and part of that plan is obviously to engage members of Congress. It's about engaging the many cross-border associations, and a message needs to be sent loud and clear to American decision makers that the trading relationship between Canada and the U.S. is a two-way street. We need to remind the Americans of the fact, as Steve pointed out quite correctly, that 9 million U.S. jobs are tied directly to trade and investment in Canada, not to mention the at least 30 U.S. states who count Canada as their #1 trading partner.
Okay, just
we do have leverage.
Okay, just a quick question. A quick question, just in a word, to both of the opposition members. Michael Cooper, should Canada be ready to counter-threaten, to retaliate, to threaten retaliation?
Well, we need to keep all options on the table as negotiations proceed. But we need to do our best to work cooperatively with the United States in recognition of the fact that we have $2 billion in trade each and every day and hundreds of thousands of Canadian jobs on the line.
Okay, Rachel Blaney, should Canada be ready to retaliate and identify sectors that we would retaliate in?
You know what I think we need to do is we need to have a government that stands firm, is fighting hard for Canadians and making that clear. Right now we're seeing a government that is really sort of kowtowing to President Trump and trying to soothe waters that are not always able to be soothed in that way. We need to stand firm and need to stand up for Canadian jobs. It's important.
Well, on that note, I will let all three of you have a wonderful, productive time in your ridings for the next week. Thanks very much for speaking with us.
Thank you, Martin.
Thanks.